Facial expressions are often described as a universal language, but the meaning of a face may depend on more than the movement of the eyes, mouth, or eyebrows. This educational story explores a study of Trobriand people in Papua New Guinea and shows why emotion should be understood through biology, culture, and context together. The goal is not to dismiss facial expressions, but to read them with greater care and curiosity. For more than a century, scientists have asked whether all humans experience the same basic emotions and express them in the same way. Charles Darwin explored this question in the 1870s in The Expression of the Emotions in Men and Animals. Later, in the 1960s, psychologist Paul Ekman showed photographs of Western faces to people in isolated communities and asked them to identify the emotions. Early experiments seem to show that happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, and surprise were recognized around the world. That universal conclusion remained influential for about 50 years, but researchers later began questioning the methods and assumptions behind the earlier studies. In 2011, psychologists Carlos Crivelli and Jose Miguel Fernandez-Doles planned a new investigation of Ekman's work in Papua New Guinea. Crivelli traveled with anthropologist Sergio Urillo to the Trobriand Islands, a culturally isolated region where about 60,000 indigenous Trobrianders live. Instead of studying the community from a distance, the researchers were adopted by host families, took local clan names, and spent months learning Kilivila. When the study began, the researchers showed 72 young people between the ages of 9 and 15 photographs from an established set of facial expressions. Participants came from different villages. One group was asked to link each face to an emotion such as happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, or hunger, while another group completed a different task. This design allowed the researchers to compare simple emotion labels with questions that placed the faces inside meaningful situations. The results were not identical for every expression. Participants matched smiling with happiness almost every time, which suggests that some facial behaviors may be widely recognized. However, the results for scowling, nose scrunching, pouting, and neutral faces were mixed. Different participants gave different answers, showing that a single facial movement does not always carry one fixed emotional meaning. The study therefore suggested that some expressions may be easier to understand across cultures than others. One result was especially surprising: a wide-eyed, lip-parted gasping face that Western cultures often associate with fear and submission was commonly interpreted by the Trobrianders as angry. When Crivelli asked questions inside short stories, such as which person might start a fight, participants again connected the gasp face with threatening behavior. The same face that Western observers read as fear could therefore communicate danger or aggression in another cultural setting. The findings do not mean that emotions never produce natural physical reactions. James Russell explained that emotional reactions and the way people interpret them can vary from culture to culture. The gasp face may be a natural response to urgent or distressing situations, but Western culture may connect it with feeling fear, while Trobrianders may associate it with instilling fear or threatening others. A similar expression also appears in threatening forms during some Bori ritual dances, suggesting that culture can teach communities how to use and understand facial behavior. Russell proposes an idea called minimal universality. The human face may have only a limited number of ways to move, creating a basic biological template. However, culture filters that template and gives each expression a more specific meaning. This idea suggests that biology may provide the raw facial movements while learning language, social rules, and context help people interpret them. It also creates a serious challenge for emotion recognition. Technologies designed to detect lying, danger, or planned violence from a face alone. The study is important, but it does not end the debate about universal emotions. Psychologist Disa Sauter said the research should be repeated with adults and with experiments in which participants produce angry or threatening expressions, not only interpret photographs. Social psychologist Alan Fridland praised the researchers' knowledge of the community but noted that photographs may not capture the context of everyday life. He also warned that offering happiness as the only positive answer may have influenced the results about smiling. The careful conclusion is that facial expressions may contain biological elements, yet their meanings can be shaped strongly by culture and situation. The study's larger lesson reaches beyond psychology. A face can give us useful information, but it cannot always tell the whole story by itself. Before deciding that someone is afraid, angry, dishonest, or dangerous, we should consider the situation, the person's culture, and the possibility that we are interpreting a familiar expression through our own assumptions. Understanding emotions requires observation, context, and respectful communication. The more we learn about cultural diversity, the more carefully we can design technology, and the more thoughtfully we can understand one another.